tonight, a very special guest, and it's my pleasure to have Paul Lauzon from Fouad Abiad's podcast, Bodybuilding and Bollocks, and the Real Bodybuilding podcast.
Mhm.
And you're also an IFBB bodybuilding judge.
Yes. Yes.
So how you dealing with your newfound fame?
Well, of course, I owe it all to Fouad. I mean, if it wasn't for him, probably nobody would know who I am. Like we were just talking there for a minute. Like I really enjoyed doing the podcast with Fouad. I'm thankful and grateful that he feels like I can add something to it. It's great to know get to know some of those other guys on the show.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of fun. I enjoy doing it. I never really did a podcast before until I started doing Fouad's. And I don't know, I just feel very comfortable doing them because it's just like as it's you and I right now, like I just see Fouad and whoever else is on the show that day, so it's kind of like you're just talking with buddies, so you kind of like just relax and talk freely, and I don't know, it's pretty fun. I enjoy doing it.
Well, I'm a big supporter and a big fan. As you can see, I have some of his
yes, yeah. I'm wearing one myself.
Right.
Fouad well today.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is my wife bought me a bunch of T-shirts from his website for Christmas.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
So before we jump into that, you were saying you're half Italian, right?
Yeah, my mom's from Italy.
What part of Italy is your mom from?
Right around Rome, so the central part.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're Chicaro.
Okay, because my grandparents are from Sicily.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
and I was born in I was raised in Brooklyn, and now I'm in Jersey because my wife is from Jersey. So
really?
Out here, yeah.
Yeah. How do you like it there?
It's quiet, living in New York. New York was a little bit more hectic.
Yeah.
But we have a home and it's quiet. It's more suburban,
Yeah. What's it like there right now with all the COVID stuff?
It's not bad at all, man. Really, for the most part, everything is open as long as you wear a mask. Nobody really cares.
Really?
Yeah, like last night we went to my niece's wedding, and the only people that had the mask on at the wedding were the people working there. Nobody even had it on.
Was there a capacity for how many people you could have at the wedding?
I don't know. It was a small wedding. It was only like 50 people. It wasn't a very big wedding.
Okay.
But what's happening now, honestly, and hope I don't get anybody in trouble. The capacity at this point is being ignored.
Yeah, really.
It's like Jersey's up to 50%. New York is up to 25%. But like if you go to the gym, it's like New York City is a little bit more strict, but if you go to the gym in Jersey, it's packed. Like nobody cares. Yeah,
it was like that here last lockdown. I guess that would have been the second lockdown, where they were at the gym. Like most of the businesses here, where I'm from in Windsor, Ontario, they were allowing like 25% capacity. I think it was the rule at the time. But like the gym that I was going to at the time, that me and Fouad were going to, it was a lot busier than that. It seemed like, at least, but it was a very big gym too. So maybe they could get by with it because of their size. But now they've made things way stricter now.
I've heard. Yeah, I've heard Canada's really, really bad right now. I mean, not as far as the COVID, but as far as the restrictions.
The restrictions, right? Exactly. It's kind of frustrating because we see the US, opening up, and like I was watching the UFC last weekend. Full house in Florida, and here we are. Like our kids are still at home. There's no schools are closed. Every business is closed.
Yeah, even the strictest states in the country now are basically half open.
Really?
Yeah. You guys everything is just wear the mask. Like you do anything, just wear the mask.
Really? Yeah. We wish we had that here right now, and I don't know what it's going to take for us to get there or when it's going to be, but hopefully soon. Yeah, hopefully soon, because summertime's right on the corner. People are going nuts.
Yeah. Even baseball season now, even baseball, the stadiums could be at 25% capacity, so you can go to a baseball game now.
Really? So life's slowly returning to normal.
Yeah. It's actually really nice because during that lockdown, my wife has a hair salon. She had a lockdown, and I'm a sewer worker in New York City.
Oh, okay.
So we got our overtime cut because everybody was like really, crazy. But once like honestly, I mean, I don't know, I'm not into politics, but for the most part, once Trump was out of office, it kind of, especially in New York City, kind of started to open up again and so on.
Yeah, the politicalization of it, at least.
Yeah. Like I don't follow politics too much. I don't know, what smart. But it seems to be the how it went. But getting back to the Italian thing, I don't know about many. Is Canada the same way like the States was? Like Back in the day, there was a lot of Italian communities, like in
Mhm.
like, and then basically now they're all gone, and everybody's kind of moved out to the suburbs, and
Yep.
like there's parts of Jersey and there's parts of New York that are more Italian, but they're more suburban, and they've moved out of
Yeah.
like Brooklyn and New York City and Jersey City. Is it the same way in Canada?
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. Yeah, like there used to be like certain areas where the city that I'm from, Windsor,
Yeah,
there was like a little Italy area. It's
right.
Erie Street. It's where all the Italian restaurants were, mostly Italian businesses. I
Mm-hmm.
grew up right around that area. But now, like, you still have all the Italian restaurants in Erie Street, but
Yeah,
it's not quite as,
yeah,
it's a lot more diverse now. It's not
yeah,
quite just Italian anymore.
yeah,
But, yeah, we used to have like our own, like, little sort of like a little Chinatown too in Windsor.
yeah.
Then there's like an Arabic section in that. But
Mhm.
for the, yeah, and those, it was, more pronounced those areas, maybe
Mhm.
10, 15 years ago, but now they're getting a lot more blended in.
Yeah, it's funny because you go to Little Italy in New York City, and it's basically just the restaurants and the bars. But
Right.
nobody in the neighborhood is Italian anymore. Matter of fact, it's mostly Asian.
Yeah. Right.
And even if you go to Brooklyn, my old neighborhood is completely mixed.
Really.
Yeah, the main street on where I grew up is called Christopher Colombo Boulevard.
Oh, really? Oh, they
Yeah,
use the Italian name too, Como.
now it's completely mixed. Now it's totally
Really?
mixed. Yeah, yeah. Still some Italian, but it's completely mixed.
Were you a Sopranos fan?
Oh, I love that show. Are you
Oh, yeah, yeah,
kidding?
yeah, for sure.
Sopranos and Breaking Bad were my two favorite shows.
Really?
And yeah, and what I don't understand is like so much detail and casting was so great in those two shows. I
Yeah.
don't understand why another show can't replicate at least the detail and the research and the casting.
Yeah, like I've seen a few shows since Sopranos that are good, but definitely not on the same level as
Yeah, no,
Sopranos.
not at all. Just like even the way he everything about it, how the women are, how the men are, and so on and so
Right.
forth. I mean, my father grew up, and my parents grew up in Red Hook, Brooklyn, which is a really rough part of Brooklyn. But my
Mhm.
mother is going to be 86. My father would have been 86,
Oh, wow.
and it was all tough guys and wise guys and so on and so forth.
Right.
It's just like the Sopranos showed it, and same mannerisms, same ways, same deal, blah 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 blah.
Really.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that show nailed it.
oh, absolutely. I don't know what the problem is. Like, I don't know why it's so difficult to cast. I mean, just the casting alone, like,
Mhm.
I don't. You don't have to have like the $5 million actor to be in it for the show to be a success.
Right. The show can kind of make the actor like James Gandolfini, you
Yeah,
know?
right. Yeah, exactly. And even the other, the rest of them were fantastic on that show.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, so I think what I really wanted to ask you was about judging, the
Yeah.
bodybuilding judging, because I did a
Yeah.
few shows. Like I did, I was not really that good. I did a few um, amateur shows, NPC shows in New
Okay.
York and New Jersey and whatnot. And for the life of me, I don't know how the judging works.
Well, I can't speak for American judging,
Mm,
but Canadian judging. But back in, was it 2016 or 2017 when the separation from the IFBB, IFBB Pro League separated from the international IFBB, I guess you could call
right. Yeah.
it. So ever since then, now the CPA is aligned with the NPC, and our judging criteria is the same now. Um, at least it's more like officially in line with each other, whereas
Hmm.
before it was sort of loosely based. Excuse me. So yeah, with in Canada, the way we do amateur judging is obviously you have your pre-judging portion of the show and your
Right.
finals. Your pre-judging is where all the judging is done. The finals is only pretty much for overalls. There may be a tie that may be, it's up to the head judge to decide. There may be a tie going into the finals where head judge may want a class rejudged. That's a
Yeah.
rare occasion. But for the most part, all the judging is done in the morning. Just overalls are judged at night.
Hmm.
So the way we judge it in amateurs in Canada is you have your sheet, you have your score sheet for each class. You have your competitors by number on the page, and then you have your placings. So basically, all you're doing is you're just placing these competitors one through whatever the case may be, 5, 10, however big the class is. And
Hmm.
then at the end, the statistician will take the top score and the lowest score and eliminate that, and then take the other scores, the combined totals, the lowest being the winner, and so on from there.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. From what I've been explained over here, it sounds pretty similar.
Yeah.
Now, and I'm sure you've faced like competitors that basically say, this whole thing is rigged, it's
Oh
fixed,
yeah.
and so on and
Yeah.
so forth. Um, I have been to shows where it's like, wow, that guy was overlooked.
Yep, for sure.
Or I've been to shows where it's like, why'd they pick that guy over that guy? Why is that guy in first and the other guy in third?
Yep.
And matter of fact, the last show I did was 2014, and it was the Brooklyn Grand Prix. And the guy who came in second in my weight class, the entire audience thought he was going to win the whole show.
Yeah.
And he came second in my weight class, and the guy who came in first won the winner of the whole show. And there was plenty of booze and whatnot. And everybody was like, I remember I was on stage, holding my own, and I remember I was like fifth at that show, whatever. And I remember just like when they called him second, I was just looked over like I was like shocked. Is there any political? Is it there? Something rigged? Is it basically just objective or subjective, if you will?
Again, only speaking for myself and what I've been involved with.
Right.
I believe that judging comes with it a weight of a lot of integrity. If you compromise your integrity as a judge, you lose your credibility as a judge. So that's a very dangerous line. You don't want to cross that line, in my opinion. In my opinion, if you're someone who does allow favoritism, whatever it might be, biases, you shouldn't be a judge. Because the integrity of our sport depends on the integrity of our judges. If people believe that our sport isn't, is rewarding things like favoritism and bias, then our sport's gonna, suffer accordingly. You could probably take the example of boxing a number of years ago, where boxing, it seemed like it was becoming fixed, some of the fights.
Yes,
at least that was the appearance. I'm no boxing expert, but I was somewhat of a boxing fan in those days. And because of certain promoters being involved at the time, it seemed like there was some shady things going on in boxing judging, and it hurt boxing large. And then the UFC came along and stole a large portion of their fans.
100%, absolutely.
Yeah, and so in my opinion, and you could argue that there's been some favoritism before in bodybuilding judging, for sure. Again, not that I've been a part of that. I would never be a part of that as a judging panel. I would never go along with putting someone where they don't belong. So I can only speak to what I've been involved in. I know a number of years ago there's some controversy over some Mr. Olympia placings.
That was my next question.
Yeah, there's always, and there always will be. When you have a sport that's subjective and it's based on people's opinions, you're always going to have a lot of debate and and right or wrong. But a couple of times it did seem like a little bit like, like this guy definitely looked better than the other guy.
Yeah, I think Phil Heath deserved every win he got. It's just my opinion.
Right.
That's just my opinion. There were a couple of times though, like I'm 45 years old. I've been a hardcore bodybuilding fan since I'm 15.
Okay.
And there were two times, well, more than two times. There were a couple of more than 10, but the two most disturbing Mr. Olympia's, from my opinion, was the Jay Cutler over Victor Martinez and the Dorian over Nasser.
Yeah. Did you watch Fouad's podcast with Dorian recently?
Yes, not the whole thing, but I did watch it. Yeah.
They discussed that, actually.
Oh, really?
And you know what? To Dorian's credit, he straight up admitted that yes, Nasser beat him in a couple of poses, no question about it. It seemed to be Dorian's opinion that he believed he still won the overall show against Nasser when you broke it down pose by pose. But he was very open-minded to the argument that perhaps he didn't, or at least he was open to the fact that it's a debatable outcome that show.
And then if you credit. Absolutely, yeah. From all the Dorian Yates interviews I've seen, he is very down to earth and very honest, and and I think that's one of the things that made people like him, especially after he retired.
Right.
But look, I don't know. I'm just guessing. Again, this is my guess. I've been a bodybuilding fan for 30 years.
Right.
Nasser El-Somebody was not the most likable guy in the world.
Absolutely.
He had a lot of people did not like him.
Definitely. His reputation definitely preceded him.
Yeah. And Victor did have a record. He did have a criminal record.
Yes. And
Kai too. Yeah. Kai too. And it's just I'm just saying it could be. It's a possibility.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
and I will say this about judging: we're human beings. Human beings, as unbiased as you try to be, you can't control the way your mind works sometimes.
Mhm.
It's just human nature sometimes. If you had a bad experience with this person before, be it that you saw them, act unprofessionally or or show, be unsportsmanlike on stage in the past, and it's very close between him and another guy who's
Mhm.
always carried himself in a very respectful and professional way. I'm not saying that it's a conscious decision, but I mean, we're all human. You know what I
Right.
mean? And we all have things that we may not know influence our decisions at the end of the
Right.
day.
Sure.
That so I do think that's important as a professional bodybuilder, even an
Mhm.
amateur bodybuilder for that matter, always conduct yourself in a professional manner. You may
Mhm.
not always agree with the results, but I believe you have to maintain a certain behavior, so to speak. Just you have to be respectful on stage.
Sure.
And when you lose that respect, it may hurt you down the line, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's kind of always been that, and in the New York, New Jersey area, that is the unspoken law that if you act unprofessional, Steve Weinberger doesn't forget it.
Oh, Steve's an old school guy.
Yeah,
What,
yeah.
my test judge to become a professional judge, Steve was the head judge of that show,
Mhm.
and I was a bit intimidated being on a panel with Steve Weinberger because I'm like yourself. I'm 48 years old. I've
Mhm.
been a bodybuilding fan since I was literally like 12, 13 years old.
Right. Yeah.
I've seen Steve Weinberger, in the magazines, and videos and that since I was a kid. I have a
Hmm.
tremendous amount of respect for that man,
Hmm.
and I was a bit intimidated to be on his panel, and I was intimidated to even talk to him at times.
Sure. Sure.
But I respect that kind of judging because I believe that a sports the customs of a sport, the culture of a sport should be maintained, I believe,
Yeah.
and it takes someone like Steve to sort of you know put that in place, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, again, I don't know much about the actual judging part, but it seems to me since Steve took over, like the like he judges in the Olympia,
Hmm.
it seems to be a little bit more fair.
Yeah,
Only,
he gives
only,
everyone a fair look.
yeah, because there were a few times, generally speaking, the Olympia is dominated by one bodybuilder for many
Right,
years,
right.
and there were a few times where like, Ronnie wasn't, or Ronnie was off, or Jay was
Hmm.
off, and or Dorian was off. But it seems since the Phil Heath era, it's been like, in the last 4 years, we've had four different Mr. Olympias, and from my opinion, they pick the right guy every 4 years.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I think what happened. I think the year that the big controversial one, the Jay Victor year,
Yeah.
2000, and was that 2007, I believe.
I
Um,
think so. Yeah.
I think so, but I think that's where they learned their lesson. I believe that what if you're the champion, you're going to have to earn it. Like it's not going to be given to you anymore. You're going to have to
Oh,
earn it.
okay. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think I'm just speculating, but that's where I saw a difference in the judging. That's
Mhm.
where I believe, as a fan, that I saw. Now they're giving these guys a real fair look. Like
Mhm.
you see Steve, he works these guys. Like
Oh,
he'll make
yeah.
them. He'll make them stay up there for half an hour, 45 minutes until he has his mind made up. And
Yeah.
that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
That's the way it should be.
And when he's the head judge in an amateur show, especially with bodybuilding, it's like you look. I mean, to my opinion and to my eye, if I'm in the audience and I'm watching, like if I go to a show, if I'm backstage or whatever, and I go, oh, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right?
Mhm.
Let's say for argument's sake, and Steve's the head judge. Is like, well, there 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and he gets it done quick. It's like
Yes.
it's no nonsense. It's like
That's
let's go through
experience.
it.
That's
Yeah.
experience. I'm not sure if you know who Rudy Jambrosic is.
No.
Rudy's a professional judge here in Canada. Rudy was sort
Mhm.
of like my mentor, and Rudy's like the Canadian version of Steve, you could call it.
Oh, I see.
Rudy's
Okay.
Rudy's Rudy's an ex-police officer. He's been a judge for. I've been a judge for 20 years. Rudy's probably been a judge for 30 years.
Mhm.
He's judged probably more shows than any human being I've ever known. He's judged
Okay.
literally like 500 shows.
Mhm.
He's a workhorse. But anyways, he's very similar to style, and he's very quick, and that's where I tried to learn. Because I mean, when your mind's made up, like okay, like even though you want to give these guys some stage time,
Mhm.
for their family, for their friends, whatever, came to
Right.
see
Right.
them,
Right.
you want to give them their stage time. At the same time, if it's a big show, you got to get it moving, and
Yeah.
because you got to. I mean, it may not seem important to some people, but outside of that top 5, the next 6 through whatever it may be, 15 is important to those guys too. They need to know where they stand, and they need to be given a fair chance to show where they stand. So it takes time, and you need to be quick, and that comes with experience, I believe.
And that leads me to my next question. Over the last, let's say, 10 years or so, I mean, the classes in bodybuilding have just exploded. I mean, there's just so many classes, and the newer ones are usually more packed. So the physique guys or the bikini girls, there's usually 50 guys in every amateur show.
Yep.
Have you ever had an experience where you judged one of those classes, or any class for that matter, and afterwards you realize you let one slip through the cracks?
Yeah, it's happened, and it'll stay with me for a long time. I take a lot of pride in my judging. I take a lot of pride in getting it right. And when there's always been a couple shows, and a couple, not many, but especially the bigger shows where you're doing pro qualifiers. And for example, the Toronto Pro Show, the Toronto Pro Super Show, that show is it's crammed together in one weekend, the pro show and the amateur show. The amateur show, the most we've ever gotten in one year was almost 600 athletes. So you have that many athletes you have to judge quickly, because the time frames for the stage are very, very tight, because the pro show's also going on and they have to share the stage. So you have very quick time frames to work with, and you have to judge 600 athletes in a compressed amount of time. So you're moving really, really quick. And there was once or twice where I remember where, looking back, I just wish I could have had that class back. I just, I thought about it, because, some classes will stick with you when it's that close of a call. And I'll go back to my room at the end of the day, and I'm thinking about that class, and it bothers me. I'm like, I wish I could have that class back. I want to take one more.
Has any athlete ever approached you?
And I try to be honest.
And you knew that you actually overlooked it?
Yeah, and I try to be honest. I'll try to tell someone, like, hey, I don't want you to be discouraged. You had a great physique that day. You were a bit overlooked. You perhaps should have been a bit higher. So don't let it discourage you. Keep working. We're not going to miss you again. Maybe this time you got a bit overlooked, but it's not going to happen to you again. Like
right. See, in the amateur circuit, I could kind of understand it, especially in those larger classes like men's physique or bikini. But when I watch a pro show, and I see like in my opinion, last year's Arnold Classic, Akeem Williams was overlooked. I think he came in 8th or 9th. And again, that's just my opinion, but that seemed to be the consensus with, bodybuilding podcasters and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
How does something like that happen? How does somebody like Akeem Williams, who's been around for so long?
Yeah. So with Akeem, especially, I love Akeem's physique. Like, he is brute muscle, that man. Like, and he's powered. His physique shows it. His biggest drawback for Akeem is his high lats. It's his back. His back is great, but his lats are so high that it takes away from both of his back poses.
I see what you're saying.
Even his front lat spread a little bit, it takes away from. And back, it's the sum of, like, the best in bodybuilding. It's the total package that we're judging on, no question about it. It's whoever's the balance of conditioning, mass, symmetry, proportions. It's the sum of all those parts. It's not one particular thing in bodybuilding. But certain body parts, and it could be a structural problem like Akeem's, where it's not a matter of lack of muscle, it's just a structural issue. It can be so glaring compared to someone who doesn't have that same structural issue, that weakness wasn't enough. His other strengths weren't enough to overcome that weakness, because that weakness was so vital. Like back, like back is such an important body part. I know it's only 2 poses, but you also see it from the 2 front poses, 2 front lat spread and front double biceps. And it's just a structural thing with Akeem. I love his physique, and I just wish there was something he could do to change that, but that's just God-given, I believe.
See, now that you explain it to me, now it makes all kinds of sense.
Yeah, good.
Right, because I'm not a judge, and I'm now thinking about it, of course, because you look at the guys that were in the Arnold Classic, and you look at the top 5 guys that it was William Bonac and was it Brandon? I don't know. William Bonac, Dexter. You go down the line. I don't remember exactly, and you go, okay, yeah, they did have better structure.
Right. Well, I'm thinking back to the O, because that's more recent memory for me.
Yeah.
Because Akeem was, I believe, 6th at the O.
6.
So the top 5, you had Ramy in front of him, Brandon, Phil,
William Bonac,
and then who was 5th again at that show now?
Bonac was 5th.
Who was 4th?
4th was Heidi.
Hottie, right.
Yes.
So those five guys in front of him, you could argue that, definitely Akeem beat those guys in certain poses. No question about it, some of those guys. But in the back, he just structurally gave up so much, I think, to those guys who don't have those same structural weaknesses, that it was too much to overcome, I think, at that level, especially, where you're going against the best of the best.
Yeah, I agree. Because I had him on and we did talk about his placing. And when I didn't remember who number 5 was, and when he told me William Bonac, I was kind of like, yeah, like that's a tough guy to beat, man.
It's a tough guy to beat.
That's
that's 5th place at the Olympia. Like, think about that. Like,
yeah, he really
top 5.
He's pretty much the full package. The only way you could beat him is if really he comes off.
Right. If you could just sort of make William Bonac a little bit longer, that his physique isn't so compact.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how you beat that,
Right.
And he comes in on the money every single time, full. Like, I don't know. It's that bodybuilding, the top 5, 10 in the world today are incredible.
Yeah, there's a lot of talent, a lot of young talent coming up.
There is.
Speaking of young talent, what young guys do you like? We'll stick with the open because 212 is deep. But
it is, for sure.
Yeah, but we'll stick with the open. Otherwise, we'll be here all night.
Oh, man. Well, there's so many much talent coming up. Look at Nick Walker.
He's a freak. He's a freak of nature.
To have that kind of muscle at 26,
25, whatever he is.
Oh, man.
Like him and Hunter LeBron.
Hunter,
the same way.
Hunter impresses me so much. Ian, from Canada here. Ian.
Yes.
Ian's still young. James Hollingshead from England. James is a beast. He's putting on so much muscle. Justin Rodriguez, like, there's so much talent now. Blessing, I can't wait to see.
I can't wait. Yeah, I know. Do you know who I really like? Speaking of structure, who I don't think he gets enough credit, and I think it's because he hasn't competed in the States yet. Samson Dowda.
I know, and he's getting better too. He's working with John now. He's working with John Meadows now, and his physique is even getting better. Looks like
he was actually the first guy I interviewed, the first big bodybuilder I interviewed.
Yeah.
And he kind of opened the door for me, because once I interviewed him, I would approach message other bodybuilders and be like, and I would throw that interview at them and go, here, look, I actually, I'm serious. And he kind of opened the door for me, and he was the nicest guy in the world. But his structure with his X frame and his tall and wide clavicles and his shoulders and his V taper, he looks phenomenal.
And the attachments, the full muscle bellies.
Yes, yeah.
That's something you can't sort of train for. It's God given.
Right.
And those full attachments, that bubbly muscle that hangs off the bone, he's got it for sure. Give him a few years and he's going to be really tough.
Who do you think is going to take the New York Pro? Because that seems to be the big show coming up.
Going into it, I got to think Justin. Justin's the favorite. I'm pulling for Nick. I'd love to see Nick pull it off, but based on what I seen last year, I think Justin's the favorite. Hassan Mustafa is going to be good.
I know he just posted some pictures recently on his Instagram.
Yeah,
he looks insane.
He was training at Flex Lewis's place, I think, for a little while. He's got a ton of muscle.
It's insane.
He
kind of got a raw deal last year. He got sick and he was in the hospital.
I want to see him and Nick next to each other, because I feel like they have similar physiques. They're both,
they do.
Compact, big dudes.
I'd say I was picking Justin too, only because he came in second behind Ian last year.
Yeah, right.
So I'm like, well, Ian's not in it, so I would go with Justin, because Justin, he's got a lot of muscle.
He does.
What do you think? What do you think kept him out of the number 1 spot last year with Ian?
I think one of the issues definitely at that particular show, his stomach was a bit distended. Okay. It looked like perhaps he had overcarved or something for that show. Because I think they fixed it for the next show after that.
Okay.
But that looked like his biggest, one of the advantages that Ian had over him, at least.
Ian is, for me, Ian seems to be like. You see Ian next to Justin, or you see him next to another bodybuilder, and I mean, again, this is just my opinion. I don't know. You're the judge, and he doesn't seem that impressive.
No,
but then when you go look at him from pose to pose, he doesn't have any weaknesses.
Right? No, yeah,
he's the full package.
Yeah, there's no one particular body part with Ian that sticks out, but his physique is well rounded. He gets shredded.
His waist is nothing. I mean,
and he's thick, he's got that thick granite-like muscle, he's got that working man's physique, I think, with aesthetics. I think he's kind of, ever since Fouad's kind of, semi-retired at the moment, I think Ian's kind of taken over the reins as Canada's top pro bodybuilder.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
Ian's got a great future. I judged Ian as an amateur here in
Mhm.
Ontario. And he was impressive. The first show I judged him in was at the Toronto Super Show. At the time, it was still the amateur portion of that show at the time was our Ontario Provincial Championships,
Mhm.
and Ian won that show. That was the first time that I judged him, and he was a clear-cut winner. He was just a man among boys in his class.
Yeah, even the doubters from the New York Pro, and when he lost to Hunter, when he showed up at the Olympia, he pretty much shut everybody up.
Ian or Hunter?
No, Ian.
Ian, yeah. Well,
Ian showed up at the Olympia because I was a little bit of like, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit of a doubter with Ian. I was like, maybe Justin should have won, but I could see how he's more complete than Justin. But once he showed up at the Olympia, and I was like, wow, I don't know what he did different. It was like a different person.
That was definitely his best look ever. I thought
he looked amazing.
He did. Yeah. He had more detail than ever before. He was bigger than ever before, and his conditioning, like always, was spot on.
Right.
I remember being at Ian's pro debut. I went to Orlando, Florida, to see Fouad compete. It was actually Fouad's first pro win, and Ian was making his debut at that show too, his pro debut. And Ian at that time was lacking a little bit of size, but you could see that he definitely had potential to be a good pro at that time. I think he placed 6th or 7th at that show.
Now, what made you stop competing and go into judging?
Well, a couple things. First, I had a bad pec tear the year before I did my first nationals. I won my class at the provincials, which was the Ontario's, back in 2006. I won my class at that show, and my plan was to go on to the nationals the following year. But then I tore my pec really bad training for that show, so that set back my plans for that year. So I couldn't get my pec fixed either, because it tore inside. It tore in the middle of the muscle. It tore in the fibers. It didn't tear in the attachment, so it was inoperable.
Oh man, that sucks.
Yeah, and it really threw off my psyche of being on stage. I competed one more time with it in 2008 at the Canadas, and the whole time I was on stage, I thought I looked okay, but it was always in my head that, like, because it looks pretty bad. Like, it's a big hole in my chest, pretty much. Half my pec is gone, and most of the poses, it was in my head the whole time. And I knew. Plus, injury aside, I don't think I had what it took to be pro. Whether
it's something to come to terms with. I knew.
Yeah,
I knew.
Yeah,
I
love bodybuilding. I love training for shows. I didn't love getting on stage so much, but I love training for shows.
Yeah,
and I love the lifestyle. But and not just physically, I didn't have what it took. I think mentally, I didn't have what it took.
Me neither.
Man. I wasn't willing to, push things as far as I needed to. Not, with food, with everything.
Right.
I still work a regular job. I now have a family, a wife, and 2 kids, and life is much. My priorities are a little bit different now. But I still love training. I still live a bodybuilding lifestyle. I love training with Fouad when he's getting ready for shows. It's been a couple of years now, but it's still the highlight of my day is my workout.
It's the same thing with me, man. I knew as same thing. I knew. I won a bunch of like local shows and amateur shows, but I knew I just did not have the size to do well on a national level. And the last show I did was 2014, and I think classic physique wasn't. I think it started in 14 or 15,
right around that time. Yeah.
If it would have came out maybe earlier, I would have tried it, but I certainly wasn't going to do physique. And I just knew. I remember I went to go talk to oh God, what was he's in Brooklyn? What's his name? Oscar Arden to train.
Oh yeah, Kaiser coach.
And I contacted him, and I went to go talk to him, and he was going to train me. And he's very expensive, and I was just thinking about it, and I thought about it, molded over. I was like, you know what? It's not worth it, because I'm going to go to the nationals, or I'm going to go to the North Americans. If I break top 5, wow. And then, I'm married, I have a home, I have a full-time job. Yeah. And then I was like, I was kind of like, in sort of where you're positional, but instead of judging, I was like, well, the podcasting would be something that I would be good at.
Yeah. Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You mentioned supplements before. I haven't not used any of Fouad's supplements, but there was one supplement that I use. I was wondering if you use it.
Which one?
The fiber.
I want Fouad to come out with his own fiber supplement. Where I've been bugging him about that. I've never tried Dave's particular. That's species. I've never tried it. Everyone says it's the best.
It's
I just go old school Metamucil.
I mean, literally, there are times where I have to be at work at 6:45 in the morning.
Yeah.
And there are times I tell my supervisor, you got to hold on, man.
Me and Guy were talking about this last week. Guy was saying how he likes to have his psyllium, supplement close to bedtime. Mm-hmm. That way, he wakes up in the morning, has a nice big release, and then he's good for the day.
Why did the guys think that that would bother him? Because I remember him before his podcast; he was always on Dave's show.
Yeah, I don't know. It was kind of a miss. I don't think there's no beef as that. I
never thought that.
So I think it was just sort of a misunderstanding there that he thought that Fouad was going to take offense to it, but no, I guess Dave's never did anything to Fouad that, to my knowledge.
No, I remember when they had the debate with Dave, Lee Priest, and Fouad and Luke, and he was on Dave's show plenty of times before that by himself as a guest.
Yeah,
and there are some guys. But the one good thing about social media is that instead of just idolizing a person, like when we were growing up, you just looked at a magazine,
right,
and you didn't know who the person was.
Yeah.
But with social media, and especially with podcasting, and you get to know the person themselves.
Yeah. And
either you like them less, or they become even a greater icon to you.
Right.
And I think that's what that is what makes Fouad's podcast so special.
It's because it's sort of personal.
It's very personal, and you see that human side.
Yeah, Fouad and I talk about that a lot. Like, he says to me a lot of times, like, because he actually, as much, he takes a lot of pride in that podcast and he works hard at it. But there's times him and I will be talking, he'll be like, I don't get why people like it so much, I'm not sure what it is. And, we'll sort of talk about it. And I'll say, I think it's because you sort of you open the door for people to see who you are outside of the pictures and that they see of you,
Right. That's exactly what it is. I mean, like when you watch Dave Palumbo's show or someone else, or even this, I'm talking to you, but we're talking about bodybuilding.
Yeah. Right.
Fouad, he's talking about everything, and you're getting to know their sense of humor, what kind of interest they have other than bodybuilding. You get, so on and so forth. They just become real.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, and it makes people that aren't even into bodybuilding. My wife loves watching Guy and Nick and Fouad, and you love it. She has no clue. The only knowledge of bodybuilding that she has is the show she's been to when I competed.
Really, eh?
But she loves it. She's hysterical laughing, and she thinks
that's awesome.
Yeah. So I think
really
that's
cool.
Yeah, I think that's what the deal is. You know what I mean? Like when I put this up, really only the hardcore bodybuilding fan is going to want to watch this, right? But with Fouad, I think he's attracting all different types of, different types of listeners and viewers and whatnot.
Yeah. He's got a good knack for one thing, for interviewing people, and for expanding, getting outside of the bodybuilding a little bit,
right.
Expanding his scope of guests and, pulling in people from all over, all different genres, or all different, areas.
And another thing that he's good at, and I don't even realize if he does realize it, or putting together people with the right chemistry.
Yeah,
he's really good at that.
You mean with the two regular shows with the bro chat?
Yeah. Like so for example, when he had him and Luke, and then it was James, right?
Yeah.
When Luke passed, I was like, oh man, I was like, that's horrible. But I was like, that show is never gonna be the same.
Because Luke was such a strong personality, eh? Yeah.
And then here comes Nick and Guy, and it's like boom, like he was able to he just shoveled all right, well, James is going to be with Ben, and we're going to do that one. And Nick and Guy is going to be over here. We're going to do that one. And it's just it just exploded with Nick and Guy,
Yeah, I know. Because how do you replace Luke? That guy was a 1 in a million personality.
That guy would have been, I think, do you think he would have been Mr. Olympia? Because I do. I think he had.
I think he had it in him for sure. Definitely.
And his personality, he would have been the most popular Mr. Olympia since Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Definitely. And I feel like his popularity grew a lot while he started doing that podcast.
Yes.
Before that, nobody knew him. you know, except for guys in the sport who do them, you know, just from, you know, other bodybuilders. But Fouad opened up a lot of people to see who Luke was and how funny he was, and how witty he was, and how cool he was. And I think his popularity exploded from that show.
100%. And it was so tragic. So tragic.
Yeah.
And
It's coming up on the anniversary too, you know, not to bring up a grim moment.
Oh, wow, I didn't realize that. That's right.
Next week,
it's so you know, I hope his family is doing well, his children and whatnot. And I do remember I did donate to the what is it?
The GoFundMe.
GoFundMe when they had it, you know, and really tragic.
You know, that's one thing about the podcast. I wish I had been on a little bit earlier, just so I would have been able to meet Luke. I've never met Luke. You know, I mean, these other guys too, I've only met them online, other than guy Ian. But just to speak to Luke would have been awesome, because I think he would have cracked me up.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He was a funny guy.
Yeah, him and James. What's funny is him and James. That's what I mean by chemistry. Him and James together were really good together.
Yeah.
But then when Luke left, James kind of really didn't like. But James and Ben are pretty good together. It's a different style.
Yeah.
Right. And then I don't know how he picked Nick and Guy. I don't know where that came. And that's just I mean, they're nuts. They're really. They're really awful.
And look at, like, I feel like Nick is very similar to Luke in a lot of ways, where like Nick was just looked at as just massive bodybuilder, this freak, you know, this mutant that came out of nowhere, and nobody knew his personality. And his personality seemed to be, at the time at least, before he became a regular on Fouad show, his personality was kind of, you know, guarded a little bit, just because I don't think he had been exposed to opening up yet. And then, you know, since his podcast, since he's been on Fouad's podcast, I think people have gotten to see how cool Nick is to him, the man outside of the physique, and I think his popularity has grown because of that too.
Yeah, no, well, I couldn't agree more, 100%. And like we said before, that's what's great about Fouad's podcast, is he lets you see the human side of these guys.
Nobody else is doing that.
Nobody else is doing that. It's I don't think anybody's doing that in any other sport, to be honest with you. Because,
no, I don't think so.
No, because I don't I love baseball. I don't know what, you know, any of my favorite ball players are like. I have no clue. I just know they're a good pitcher or a good hitter. That's all I know.
Yeah, and how cool would it be if, you know, your favorite baseball players had a podcast that you could type messages to and they respond to you and stuff like that, you know, and they let you into their personal lives and stuff, you know. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. But unfortunately, that's not the case. The one thing that this podcast did do for me is see what kind of guys are really good guys, and what kind of guys are not so good. Like, you know, some people I reach out to when they want to be paid to be on, you know.
Really? Yeah.
And then other people like you, no problem, whatever you want to do it, you know.
Yeah. And, like when I first got your message, I was kind of like, you want me on? You know what I mean? Like, I'm nobody, man. You know what I mean? But I was honored. You know, I was like,
I really appreciate that, man, because I would think with your newfound fame that, you know, I'm surprised you haven't been on Will the Beast's show yet.
Oh, no, not yet. No, Will isn't. No, I haven't talked to Will yet. Someone else messaged me too. Another young, like teenage YouTube guy that has a podcast too. And I told him maybe next week we'll do it. So yeah, I mean, like I said before, like I really like doing these. It's fun. I love doing them. And I'm honored that people actually want to hear me. You know what I mean? So of course I definitely make myself available for it.
I appreciate it greatly. And what Fouad did for that kid, no other bodybuilder would do.
Yeah, and he's getting everyone on now.
Yeah, no other bodybuilder would give him, you know, a chance. And like I said, that podcast shows how great of a person you are, Fouad is, Nick, Guy, like, you know, James, so on and so forth. Because they would have just, you know, ran right by it. We're like, okay.
Right. Well, with Will, I remember before Fouad went on his show, Fouad told me about it. He's like, hey, I got this message from this kid. This young kid asked me to be on his podcast. And he told me that, you know, he gets picked on at school and stuff like this, a little bit like that. And he's like, I feel bad for this kid. Like, you know, and I think he sounds pretty cool. I want to do a show, you know, what do you think? And I was like, I think that's awesome, man. Like, I think it's awesome that you're going to help this kid out do that, you know, and take your time to be on a show. And it's really done well for Will now. He's exploded, I guess. And
and what's even better is that he was on your guys' podcast, right? Were you on that one? Oh, no. No,
I wasn't on that one.
Yeah.
That was a little while ago. Yeah, no, I wasn't on that one.
Yeah,
no, I've never spoken to Will myself yet.
Yeah, and that was fantastic. I was blown away by that. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, man, that podcast really shows how great some of you guys really are, and social media shows some people aren't so great. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So it's kind of like,
In my experience, most people are pretty good people. You know what I mean? Like most people I meet are good people. Like you might meet the odd person who isn't.
no, out of all the people that I've messaged, um, only one person was a bit of a not such a nice guy.
Really, eh?
Other than that, I mean, all the guys that I've interviewed, you, Sergio, Samson, Akeem, Sean Clarita, great people. Well, I
Really,
kind of sort of knew Akeem and Sean because they're from Jersey too.
Oh, Sean's from New Jersey too?
Yeah, Sean's
I
from
knew
New
Akeem
Jersey.
was.
Yeah,
Really?
well, Akeem was originally from Brooklyn, which is like the first thing I brought up because that's what we had in common.
Okay.
But he was from Brownsville, which is a really rough part of Brooklyn.
Isn't that where Mike Tyson's from?
It's from Mike Tyson and there was another heavyweight champion that was from Brownsville. I forgot. There was a couple of them, but yeah, Mike Tyson.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds
we
like
actually talked about that. Yeah.
Really?
So what do you guys have? What do you guys have in the future in stores? Are you going to be judging any more shows or?
Well, I mean, whatever this lockdown stuff. I mean, Fouad and I promote a couple shows together as well.
Oh,
We have two amateur shows. We have one in Windsor, one in Toronto. Last year we had to cancel both because of all the regulations, and pretty much all shows in Canada last year were canceled, except for I think two or three ended up running, and they ran them outdoors out of tents. But anyway, this year we're planning on having both shows on the same date this year. We moved them both to Toronto just because there's all the uncertainty going into this year. We didn't want to have to cancel both shows and potentially, because we do lose deposit money on theaters and that too when that happens. And plus, it's hard to guess how many competitors we're going to get this year because gyms have been closed for the better part of the year. So it's hard to guess how many competitors we're going to get and whatnot. So, anyways, we made the decision to put both of our shows together this year. They're scheduled for the middle of July. We're still on lockdown right now here in Ontario. We're
any
on
word
lockdown.
of you guys getting out of that anytime soon?
It's scheduled to go on until I believe May 20th right now. But then the weekend after that is our first long weekend of the summer. So I imagine they're probably going to keep us locked down past that too. They're not going to want people partying and stuff in the long weekend.
Do the numbers make sense? I mean, is the cases spiking or anything like that?
I don't know, man. I like the numbers are going up definitely. Like there was a spike in numbers recently, and that's what led to this lockdown. But as far as
people in the States don't even keep track anymore.
I know it seems like it's become quite political.
Yeah.
At times it seems like it's a power struggle. I don't know. It's I try not to get too caught up in it sometimes because you can really get consumed with it, because it's all you're seeing and reading anymore. I'm just glad my kids have handled this pretty well with all the transitioning back and forth to online school and back in school, and that they've done a great job of transitioning, and I'm happy to see that. My wife is working from home, so
Oh, that's good. How do you keep the kids busy?
Well, the school's a lot, even with the online, it's a lot. Their workloads are pretty heavy.
Okay.
So they're busy all day during the week. But I just opened my pool this weekend, so once the weather starts getting a bit better, we got the pool now to use again. I'm still working, so I still have to go. I still go to work every day. So,
besides being a judge, what is it that you do for a living?
I work for Canada Customs. I'm a customs officer. I've been one for 20 years.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, great. Yeah, so you're like one of me. Like I'm a federal. Well, I guess you call it a state employee. I work for New York State.
Yeah, public servant. Yeah.
Yeah, except I'm underground all day and shit up to my ankles.
Oh man, and the New York.
I'm a sewer worker.
Must see some stuff.
It's
just stuff down there.
Well, it's a lot of rats.
Yeah, but big rats I hear in New York.
it's just a lot of rats. One time, this was really bad. This was even before I started working there. I've been working there about 10 years ago, and one of the guys I actually got friendly with, but he retired. He was working, and because what happens is we actually work in the plant where all the sewer water gets rushed into, and then the water has to be processed. And I know this was really sad, but they actually found a newborn baby came up into the sewer.
Shit,
yeah,
really?
It was real.
Wow.
They shut everything down. The cops came, everything came. It was unbelievable.
Really?
Yeah. I wasn't there for that, but I was really good friends with the guy who was. Like I said, he retired last year, and he told us the story, and I was like, wow.
That must have been traumatizing for him.
I could only imagine. I would still be in therapy if I were him.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Paul, I really appreciate it, man. And
my pleasure.
I appreciate you doing this because besides, my job and my wife and my house and whatnot, this keeps me going. And the fact that I can get in touch with guys like you and talk about bodybuilding and like high profile guys like yourself, this is like a dream come true to me, man.
Oh man, like I said, it's my pleasure, and I'm honored that you asked me to be on your show. It's been my pleasure to talk to you. Again, thank you for reaching out to me. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely, anytime. And you know what? Maybe when this whole thing, when you guys get not locked down anymore, and you start judging shows, you come back on, and maybe we'll talk about the shows. Because I'm gonna have Jason Arns and Rita West on, and we're gonna do like a wrap up show of the New York Pro the day after.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's definitely pretty cool. And
Fouad and I last year for the Olympia and for a couple other shows, we did sort of like a live like a live play-by-play for some of the shows, and it was awesome, man, because I'm watching the shows at home anyways,
right.
And so, and like I said, like when I do these podcasts just like you and I, it's just like I'm just talking to Fouad on the phone, you know what I mean? It's like we're FaceTiming, so we're watching the show together and we're just kind of talking about what we see, and it's awesome. I love doing it, and people seem to like it. They seem to get a lot of views, so I think we might do one for New York. I'm not really sure yet.
You gotta, because that's like the biggest. I mean, there's the Indie Pro, but there's a lot of heavy hitters in the New York Pro. That's like that's like the one everybody's looking forward to.
Yeah, those 4 names we talked about right there. I can't wait to see those 4 guys against each other.
And there's other guys too. There's that guy, I think Morgan Asti is doing the New York Pro too.
Oh, is he from France? I believe he's from.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, he's insane. I know. I'm pretty sure he is, because I think he was doing a video with Larry Wheels.
Oh yeah,
and they were working out, and he was saying that he was doing the New York Pro. I mean, he might have changed his mind since then, or it might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he's what do you think? Do you think he's just too tall?
You know what? I got to see him again. I just saw what show did he turn pro?
The Amateurs?
The Amateurs. Was it last year or 2 years?
He won the I think he won the Arnold Amateur. I might be wrong, but I know he did the Arnold Classic last year, the one that William Bonac won.
That's right. He was. That's right. Yes. From what I recall about his physique at that point, I mean, it's always a big disadvantage for guys who are that tall. It's such a large frame to fill out. So I remember his physique, obviously being very impressive because the stature of the man, the size of him. But as far as his bodybuilding, potential, like at least placing in those top shows, there might be some flaws in his physique against some of those top elite guys.
I mean, what's he got to be 400? He's 3 and
right
on the off season,
right? Like how big,
Yeah, it's like I don't know, but hopefully we'll see how the New York Pro goes. Paul, thank you so much, man.
Thank you, John. A pleasure.
I'm gonna let you go and enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you. You too.
Oh, definitely, and we'll definitely do it again.
Yeah, we'll keep in touch. Yeah, we'll do it again sometime.
All right, have a good night, sir.
Thank you. You too.